damage as I possibly can to myself and to those around me. I just want to do as much trashing in this world as I can. I'm kind of hoping that the answer to that question is no. I don't think anybody wakes up and has that kind of desire in them first thing in the morning. We all want to make wise choices. We want to make good choices. We want to do good things with our lives. But the thing is, it all depends on what our definition of good is. It all depends on what our definition of wise is. What are we lining our choices up by? Because we could think that we're making really wise choices, but actually we're lining it up by a rubbish measure of wisdom. And so where do we get wisdom from? Well, I'm kind of hoping that by now we've kind of got to grips with where we get wisdom from. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Knowledge of the Holy One is insight. The fear of the Lord is where we start to get wise. And remember that this isn't about being like cowering and afraid and sort of sniveling kind of fear. But this is a joy-filled, awe-filled, wonder-filled kind of view of God that says, this is who he is, and I am amazed that he is drawing me, he is inviting me into his life, into living a life that looks like him, that displays him in this world. It's when we look at him and we recognize that he's the one who's fit to govern. He's the one who's fit to rule. And actually, if he's fit to govern, it's because he knows how everything works. He knows how the world works. And if he knows how it works, therefore, I don't. And I have something to learn from him. And so these principles that he's giving us, these principles, are principles for righteous living, principles that look like him, that reflect the creative design of God and his perfect wisdom. And it's not just that he wants to give you and me facts about what it means to live a flourishing life. Because look at that. This is about knowledge of the Holy One as well. This is a relationship. This is about walking with him. This wisdom isn't just informational, but it's relational and it's transformational. And there's stuff about these principles that wisdom looks at and says, I love that. When we live like this, there are things that wisdom looks at and says, I really love that. And remember that wisdom speaks with the voice of God because God is the voice of wisdom. And the kind of things that wisdom approves of: faithfulness in human relationships, loyal, committed love, creativity and productivity, using the gifts that we're given to produce things that are God-glorifying, speech that is kind and that is truthful, using our resources in a way that really blesses other people, generosity, speaking up for those who can't speak up for themselves, looking out for those that society would consider to be disposable, those that society would throw away. This is the kind of stuff that wisdom looks at and says, I love that. And wisdom looks at this and says, I love that because all of this looks like Yahweh. All of this looks like our God. By the same token, there are things that wisdom looks at, and Yahweh in his wisdom looks at and says, I hate that. I hate that. And the thing is, to talk about hate and Yahweh in the same sentence feels a little bit like, ooh, does that rub a little bit? But I'm really grateful that there are things that God hates. He isn't like some fluffy old grandfather that's kind of lost control of the kids and goes, oh, well, let boys be boys. That's not how he operates. There are things that he looks at and says, no, absolutely not. Because there are things that stand opposed to his goodness. And anything that stands opposed to his goodness, he says, I hate that. And I hate it because of the damage that it does. And so, just to give you a taster of the kind of things that Yahweh hates. In Proverbs 8, this is the voice of wisdom speaking. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Remember how we said that when we grow in the fear of the Lord, actually it biases us, it moves our lives away from the path of evil towards the life of good. But these are the things that wisdom hates: pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. And then Proverbs 6, descriptions of what Yahweh hates. I love when you come across Proverbs that say there are one thing have I desired of the Lord, but there are two things. One thing, then two things, six things, then seven things. It's a very kind of Hebrew way of speaking. And I love this. There are six things that Yahweh hates. Seven that are an abomination to him. He won't even look at them. And what's top of the pops there? Top of the pops are the things that he hates. Haughty eyes. Haughty is another word for pride. And so this is what he hates. Now, I think we need to say before we go on, right? This isn't the kind of thing where, if you've got somebody you love and they do a really good thing and you go, oh, I'm really proud of you. This isn't like that, okay? Now, I kind of wish that there was a different word for that. And I asked my wordsmith friend this week, Tom, is there a different word that we can use for this? And he said, no, I can't think of one. And I was like, I was lost then. I was like, well, if Tom doesn't have another word for this, I'm completely scuppered. But I kind of thought, it's almost like the opposite of being disappointed in somebody, isn't it? It's the polar opposite of being disappointed in somebody. So can we just say, I'm really appointed in you? When you do something really good, I'm just appointed with you. But the thing is, this isn't that kind of pride. This is different. This is dangerous. This is destructive. And because he loves, in his kindest kindness, he warns us about this. He doesn't just let us get to the end of our days and then says, oh, by the way, pride's a really bad thing. He warns us about it now. And he gives us this contrast of two ways to live, that we can live in lie or truth. We can live in sin or righteousness. We can live in death or life. We can live in foolishness or wisdom. We can live in pride or humility. And wisdom calls us to choose wisely. So what is pride and why is it so bad? Well, the word that's used in the Old Testament means to be high. I think we need to clarify here. We're not talking about getting high. We're talking here about like elevating yourself up, lifting yourself up above others. This sense of pompous haughtiness. I am higher than you. I am considerably better than you. Arrogance. I don't need to ask you for anything because all of this is mine. It's claiming for myself stuff that actually isn't me. I love in the New Testament, there's a word that's used that is swollen with conceit and literally means like puffed up on smoke, all size and no substance. There's nothing actually to you. You just look a bit more impressive than you actually are. And the bottom line of pride, I think, is summed up in this T-shirt that we bought for Grace, and I don't think I would ever buy it again. I mean, look at it. Oh, that's pride right there. Pride that sort of goes around. There was a friend of mine who, for those of you that are French speakers, you'll understand this. He used to talk about people with a regardez-moi complex. Look at me. Look at me. It's all about me. I'm kind of a big deal. I exist to make a name for myself. And pride overestimates me and it underestimates God. We choose our own wisdom. There's one writer that says that pride is contending with God for supremacy. I am supreme, God. You are not supreme. I want to rule. And so we oppose God for his throne. We say that we want to take the throne and not him. And we refuse to recognize our complete dependence on him. We talked a few weeks back about he's the one that holds our breath in his hands. And when we live in a prideful way, we're refusing to recognize that he holds that breath. And this has been going on since Genesis chapter 3. There are those that describe pride as being the first sin and the starting line for all the rest. You've got the man and the woman in the garden, and God, in his generosity, is saying, I'm giving you all of this. I'm giving you all of this abundance, all of this beauty. And I want you to participate in what I'm doing in this world, to make this world a flourishing and a beautiful place. And all you have to do is to trust my wisdom. And my wisdom will be to you a tree of life. You will experience life when you walk my way. And so trust me, because you're designed to be defined in relationship to me. That's where your anchor comes from. That's where your weight comes from. And I'm only going to give you one boundary. And that one boundary is don't choose the way of your own wisdom, because if you choose your own wisdom, it will lead you to death. But then this creature appears in the garden, this serpent. And this creature is described as, so the word that's used is arum. Now, I don't know what it says in your Bible about him, but it might say that he was crafty. Now, crafty, when you think about crafty, you think, oh, a little bit sneaky. But actually, that same word, arum, is used in Proverbs to mean shrewd. It means somebody who's got they've got a good head on their shoulders. And so basically, Genesis is telling us that this creature has got a wisdom. He doesn't have God's wisdom. He's got his own wisdom. He's got his own wisdom that is opposed to the wisdom of God. And he says to the people, you will not surely die. When you eat of this, it's not going to be death, but actually God's just a killjoy. God doesn't want you to be happy. He's just limiting you. He knows your potential, and actually he doesn't want you to reach your full potential because you too can be like God. You too can rule. You don't have to be defined in your relationship to him anymore. You can make a name for yourselves. Be famous for yourselves. Come on, kids, exalt yourselves. Move on up. And that's been what he's been doing ever since. Now, the question is, who is this shrewd creature? Now, the Bible isn't actually super explicit about it. I think most of the time we get more of our view of who this creature is from Dante's Inferno than we do from the Bible. But actually, the Bible does hint that in this creature, where he lands up, pride is at the root of where he lands up. There's this description in Isaiah chapter 14. It's a description of a king. And this king is a ruler who is a beautiful king, but actually, because of his own pride, ends up taking a tumble. This is what it says. How you are fallen from heaven, O day star, son of the dawn, how you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. Above the stars of God, I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the mount of the assembly in the far reaches of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Sounds quite sort of proud. Sounds quite arrogant. And Jesus then takes these words from Isaiah and applies them to Satan. He says, I beheld Satan fall like lightning from heaven. This creature, this shrewd creature who wants to rule over his creator. He exalts himself and he ends up taking a tumble. And this is what it says in Proverbs 16. Pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Have you ever heard the expression, pride goes before a fall? Kind of feels like it's a cheap version of this. It's like a pound shop version of this, that we've chopped out the middle of that sentence. But actually, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. It's even more weighty than pride goes before a fall. And so, this is what happens to this creature. He takes a fall, but he takes humanity with him. In the Psalms, it says that the proud in heart go astray, following a lie. And that's what happened. Humanity, who wanted the name for themselves and they wanted the glory for themselves, they followed this lie. And then you see how how it kind of spirals down and down and down because of pride in Genesis, where people start to do violence to each other. And then you hit the flood, and there's this devastating indictment where it says God saw that the thoughts and intentions of man's heart was only evil ever. That's pretty bad, isn't it? It doesn't get much worse than that. And so there's this reboot at the flood, and you start again with Noah, but then that goes pear-shaped with Noah. And then you hit this moment in human history, which is kind of like the kind of, if you want a go-to moment in human history of pride, where God has said, be fruitful and multiply, spread my image across the face of the earth, and they say, no, we're all going to gather together in one place. We're going to make bricks, and then we're going to build this huge tower. And we're going to build this tower up to heaven, not because we want to be close to God, but because we want to stick one in the eye to God. And it says in the text that they wanted to make a name for themselves. They weren't concerned about making a name for God. They weren't concerned about the glory of the name of God. They were concerned about making a name for themselves. And that's at the core of pride. At the core of pride is that I want to make a name for myself. I want to be celebrated. And these people are glory robbers. They look high, but it ends up with them being brought down low because God in his supremacy frustrates them. And that's been the case throughout human history, that people have then continued to try and make a name for themselves, and all it does is damage to themselves and others. Trash is creation. Being wise in our own eyes, exalting ourselves, haughtiness, being puffed up on smoke, arrogance, it doesn't lead to anywhere good. Because here's the thing, right? We were designed to be anchored to something. We were designed to be tethered. We were designed to have a weight that holds us, the weightiness of God's wisdom. And you know, even when life kind of does that kind of thing to us, then we're still held. We're held by his wisdom. But the problem is that pride doesn't want to be held by his wisdom. Pride wants to break loose. Pride wants to make a name for ourselves, and pride wants to be released from the wisdom of God. Now, I was just going to cut it completely loose, and then I kind of had nightmares about it going straight up to the light and getting caught in there and being heated up and then having a minor explosion. But now I'm blinded by the light because I looked at the light in my wisdom. But you see that when we cut ourselves off from the weightiness of God, not only are we loosed from everything that anchors us, but actually, you know, with helium balloons, everybody hates helium balloons these days, don't they? Because they cut them loose and then they go and like kill turtles in the ocean and stuff. And that's the same thing with us. When we are cut loose from the weightiness of his wisdom, we go around doing damage to other people because all we are trying to do is to build our own kingdoms. And when we are building our kingdoms, we're not building his kingdom, his good kingdom, we're building our bad kingdoms. And so Proverbs describes it like this. Do you know, I thought there was something wrong with the projector then. Let's move that out the way. It's going to distract me. By insolence comes nothing but strife, but with those who take advice is wisdom. Insolence, pride, means that I'm unteachable. And there's this unjustified self-belief that actually I've got it right. I know everything. I know everything about how everything works. And therefore I'm going to protect my throne, and you exist to further my agenda. And you know, if you exist to further my agenda, then I will stop at nothing. I mean, I think it was Mrs. Thatcher that said that if you have to step on someone else's shoulders to get higher, that's their fault for being weaker than you. Like, oh, you know, that's like, ooh. And it wouldn't matter who said that. That's not a political statement. That's just who happened to say it. But then, oh, hang on, back up. Haughty eyes and a proud heart. Pride leads to a plowing, a way of life that's wicked. It leads to a way of life that's opposite to the way of God. And then it leads us to consider ourselves better than others. Scoffer, you know, we kind of look at people and sneer, you know, we're like, oh, you know, oof, you're beneath me. Scoffer is the name of the arrogant, haughty man who acts with arrogant pride. And you know, unjustified self-belief, left unchecked, doesn't lead to anywhere good. You know, you can think of the international situation that we're in right now, where you've got all of this kind of national saber rattling. You know, my country's better than yours. You know, I should be in control of this piece of land here, and so do you know what? I might invade. It's all birthed in human pride that says that, like, my kingdom is better than yours. And then, you know, you bring it down a level. And again, this is not a political statement. I just found this absolutely fascinating this week. This is a copy of a certain Prime Minister's school report from 1982. And it's the last sentence there. I think he honestly believes that it is churlish of us not to regard him as an exception, one who should be free of the network of obligations which bind everyone else. The rules do not apply to me. That is the voice of pride. And you know, it is so easy, isn't it, to have a look at Boris and say, well, you know, I'm considerably better than Boris because I stuck to the rules. And yet, you know, when we look in the mirror, it's like, not so fast. The evidence of pride, I think, is present in most of our lives, if we're honest, you know, and it can be things like unwillingness to learn from others, being hypercritical of others, being jealous and grasping for things that other people have and saying, do you know what, I deserve that. Why have they got it and I haven't? Being ungrateful for the things that we have. attention seeking, trying to build a name for ourselves, thinking that certain things are beneath us. Well, I can't clean the toilet. Why would I clean the toilet? Somebody else can do that. Well, who's that somebody else? Are they not an image bearer of God as well? Do you know what I mean? And then I think one of the most subtle, in the words of the wise sage Sir Elton John, sorry seems to be the hardest word. You think about it, right? The number of times that people really struggle to apologize for things. Why do you struggle to apologize for things? Just because you think that the apology is beneath you. And the number of times that I've had conversations with kids in school where I've said, right, you say sorry to this person. Have you recognized what you did was wrong? Yeah. Well, say sorry then. Sorry. Sorry, what was that? Sorry. No, it's not spelt with an F. It's spelt with an S. Sorry. It's so hard, isn't it? We find it so hard. And it's because it's our kingdom. Somebody's attacking our kingdom. And the thing is that pride creates a subtle hierarchy which divides me from other people. Pride divides. Unless it's uniting people in opposition to God. That's the only time when it unites people. And God is not a fan. He's not a fan of pride. Look at this. These are weighty words. Everyone who is arrogant in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Be assured, he will not go unpunished. But what's the alternative? Well, Proverbs is full of these contrasts, these binary choices, these either-ors, lie or truth, foolishness or wisdom, death or life, pride or humility. And there's the alternative right there. Before destruction, a man's heart is haughty, but humility comes before honor. The reward for humility, and look, there it is again, fear of the Lord, is riches and honor and life. And remember that these are principles, not promises. In the New Testament, it says that God opposes the proud. Again, weighty words. God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble because he's a gracious God, and he longs to give grace. He delights to give grace. But what actually is humility? Because it's all very well bandying this word around, but unless we actually know what it is, then how do we know that we're living it? Well, the word means low-mindedness. And it doesn't mean that I'm a sniveling wreck who's constantly running myself down. Instead, what it means is that I've got a right view of myself. I've got a right view of where I sit in the world, both in relation to God and others. I'm allowing myself to be defined by him. It's his name that matters more than anything else. And do you know what? He chooses to call me precious. He chooses to call me child. He chooses to call me loved. He welcomes me into his family. And it's that I'm defined by. That's what humility does. And what it does is it turns us outwards from ourselves. It means we stop looking at ourselves. And I love this that C.S. Lewis says, a really humble man will not be thinking about humility. He will not be thinking about himself at all. It's almost like the default changes so that we're less kind of self-obsessed with, am I being humble here? And actually he turns us outwards and he turns us upwards. He changes us. It's what he does. And then you think about what this would do in a community. It produces a community that is united. There's this love at the core of it that unites people. It's unselfish. It's not puffed up on self. It counts others as more significant than me. It looks to the interests of others and not to the interests of ourselves primarily. Now, the question is, did I just make those things up? No, I didn't. Paul said them before me, and this is what he said. He said, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being, there it is, that like-mindedness, like-minded, united love. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or being puffed up on yourself, but rather in humility, value others above yourself. Looking not to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. And Paul says that the best demonstration of this, if you want to know where this has been seen and demonstrated and known, like shock horror, I think we all know where the best demonstration of this is. The best demonstration of this is in the God-man. It's in Jesus. And Paul says that actually we should have his mind among us. That if we've got his mind and his attitude in our relationships. In another translation of the Bible, it says, have this mind among you which is yours in Christ Jesus. That when we're united to Jesus, this is the mindset that he gives us. In his grace and his kindness, this is the mindset that he gives us. That this one who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God a thing to be grasped. So the glory is his. He owns the glory. And he chooses not to grasp after that, but he makes himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness and being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself and became obedient, even to the point of death on a cross. He has the right to the glory, and he surrenders the glory to rescue proud rebels. He rescues us from our sin, from ourselves, and from our pride. We grasped what wasn't ours, and we fell. He didn't grasp what was his. He took the fall, and he's lifted us up with him. Church, he is truly astounding. You know, when we think about who he is and what he's done, are we not astounded by his humble love that rescues us? And as we humbly surrender to his kind rule, so he transforms us by his Spirit, and he stops us from building our own kingdoms, from desiring to make a name for ourselves. And instead, he draws us into building something that lasts forever, extending his kingdom where he's making all things new, and he's making it according to his wisdom. And a community that's built on Jesus-like humility, it flourishes. It's produced by an awe of Jesus, and is produced by the Spirit of God living in us, where we have this right estimation of who we are. Again, it's not a kind of sniveling, you know, the sort of fake humility where we run ourselves down so that other people feel obliged to build us up. Oh, no, you're not awful. You know, you weren't responsible for all of the sort of European wars in the 1980s and 90s. You know, where we say ridiculous things so that people will build us up. That's not humility. That's just pride upside down. Instead, this is a right sense of who we are, where we have a self-esteem that's based on not our assessment, but on God's assessment. A right sense of who we are in relation to God and others. And it's that God bit that's the most important bit, isn't it? Because when you get his view on you, when you get his take on you, really, there's no need to build yourself up anymore. And actually what it does is it corrects all of our kind of relationships in this plane as well. When we really understand who he is, what his name is, and the name that he gives us, then it transforms our relationships with one another as well. And it produces this beautiful community where everyone is preferring the needs of everyone else. And nobody's kind of watching their own backs, because we're all watching each other's. It's precious. There's only one competition then in that kind of body, and it's the competition that Paul talks about in Romans, where he says, outdo one another in showing honor. That's it. Just honoring each other. And when we're defined by him, we don't need to make a name for ourselves. Instead, we get to live for his name, and we delight in the name that he gives us, precious, beloved, grace-purchased child. And it just causes us to chill out. Because we're not grasping after our own name and our own fame anymore. And then you see evidence of his upside-down kingdom, where we love the kind of things that he loves, where we love and honor those that the world rejects, where we receive those that the world treats as disposable. And we start to reflect our King, not because we have to, but because he's transforming us. He's changing us. And he's changing us to live and to love like he does. And there are so many lovely examples of this kind of love, this kind of humble love where people are preferring the needs of others. And I've said this before, but I get to see an awful lot of it. The stuff that just goes on in the background and nobody's drawing attention to themselves. They're just loving people. And I feel like it's really important that as a church, where you see that, call it out. We've all been, no, that's a blanket statement. I am not going to make that. Some of us Some of you have been in church environments where one of the mantras, I shouldn't use that word. I'm sorry, it's like when I say magic. Start again. You know the New Testament, there are loads of one another's, aren't there? One of the one another's that I've experienced in previous sort of iterations, versions of church is humble one another. You ever seen that in the New Testament? No, because it's not there. It's just not there. We are not told to humble one another. We are told to encourage one another. We're told to put heart into one another. It is not our jobs to humble one another. You know, you got the catch-22, haven't you, where you go up to somebody and you say, you know, you're proud. You know, I've seen a lot of pride in your life. Well, you know, if they argue back and they say, well, actually, no, I'm not. Well, there's more evidence that you're proud. It's not our job to do that. It's our responsibility to encourage one another and to humble ourselves. What it says in the New Testament is that we should humble ourselves under God's mighty hand, and in due time, He will lift us up. And so having this mind of Christ, is about looking up to Him in awe and wonder and looking out to others in love. And we don't get there by self-talk. You know, you can't look in the mirror and say, be more humble, be more humble, be more humble. It doesn't work like that. We need a concrete example. We need one to look at. And not just a concrete example who says live like this, but one who comes to live in us and empowers us to live like that. Remember that pride appeals to our sinful nature, doesn't it? Because the sinful nature is all about me. It's all about me. But the Spirit empowers us to put that to death, to say no to the self, to say no. I want to live for Him and I want to prefer the needs of others. Holy Spirit, empower me to do that. And then we joyfully recognize that He owns the throne. And when we recognize that He owns the throne and we stop contending for supremacy, and we realize that we're dependent on Him, we're happy to be dependent on Him. There's a joy that comes in this. You know, where you see words like hope, rejoice in the Bible, you often see rejoice in Him, hope in Him, take joy in Him. All of these things come in Him. And when we're living in Him, content that He is seated on the throne, that He is supreme, I don't have to make a name for myself anymore. I just exist to enjoy Him, to be enjoyed by Him, and to make a name for Him, and to be part of what He's doing in the world. And this church is really the kind of, it's the path to life. It's the path to life. I've been challenged recently in my own life that there's a default. Problem comes up, fix first, pray later. Do you see a problem with that? Lord, I'm relying on my own smarts to get me through this. I'm saying, do you know what? I've got this. I can sort this out. And actually, He's saying, dearly loved child, I don't want you to sort it out for yourself. I've got way more wisdom than you have. Just come and ask me. Come and ask me and don't doubt, and I'll give you all the wisdom that you need. And challenge me with the words of King Jehoshaphat, who said, we do not know what to do, but our eyes are on you. And so in every situation, being able to turn that back to Him, and by the Spirit, starting to correct that default away from fix first, pray later, to just walking with Him. And you know, the more we look to Him, the more we trust Him, the more we walk with Him, the more that we are defined by Him, the more we experience His full life for our good and for His glory. And so this morning, we're just going to land with a moment to meditate on what the writer of the Proverbs says wisdom looks like. He says, this is what a wise mindset looks like. The gracious God has reached down. He has come down. He has humbled Himself to rescue us in His grace and in His kindness. And will we trust Him? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. What do you lean on? You lean on things that are trustworthy, don't you? Lean on Him. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord. Turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. And so whatever situations you're in this morning where you're tempted to lean on your own understanding, or where you're tempted to make a name for yourself, let's come. Let's close our eyes. Let's meditate on these words. Let's bring those things before him as we take a big, long look, not into ourselves for the answer, but we look to the one who humbled himself, who loved us and gave himself for us. The one who therefore God has exalted to the highest place and given him the name that is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow and every tongue confess in heaven and on earth that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. This is the humble King that we can trust. So let's bring it before him this morning. Jesus, we thank you that you have the name that is above every name. And Lord, thank you that because of all that you have done for us, we get to be defined by you. Father, I pray that those that are struggling to know whether you love them this morning and therefore act out of insecurity, Holy Spirit, I pray that you would reassure them this morning that they are yours, that they belong to you. Lord, I pray that you would fill them with security and a sense of belonging and knowing that they are identified by you, that they are defined by you. And Lord, I pray that in any area where we are tempted to trust ourselves, Lord, I pray that we would lean not on our own understanding, that we wouldn't be wise in our own eyes, but that we would look to our King, the humble King who loved us and gave himself for us. In his name we pray. Amen.